Welcome to Stay
and Slay
with Mel
and Chrissy
and Dimple.
Yay! Okay, today we have a very special guest. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I can. Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Dimple Patel, and I am from the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, Illinois chapter, in short, AFSP Illinois. And I have been volunteering with AFSP Illinois since 2014.
Wow.
And last year was 10 years since I've been doing advocacy work. And my connection to suicide prevention started a few years after losing my mom to suicide in 2011, March 10th, 2011.
Wow.
And for years I didn't say anything, didn't know what to say or how to cope. And one couple years later, I just wanted to do something, but I just didn't know what to do. So I was Googling, and I still can vividly remember this.
Yeah.
But I found the Chicagoland Out of the Darkness Suicide Prevention Walk that was about a month away. And so I created Team Patel.
Yeah.
And I was so nervous posting about it, but I didn't say who I was walking for or anything. But in 2015 is when I finally shared on Facebook for the first time, why I was walking, who I was walking for. And it was finally in 2015 is when I, for the first time after losing my mom in 2011, that I finally shared it online.
Yeah. That's insane that it took that long. And I feel like back then it was way more taboo. It still is.
Yeah,
it still is.
Still is. And it's so hard to talk about.
Yes.
And because there's that disconnection, and not even disconnection, but it's that understanding of why, or questioning why would somebody do this, or what's going on. And oftentimes we see what's on the surface level of things, but there could be a multitude of different factors going on that we may not see that's below the surface, and that somebody might be going through. And research has shown that, and I could send you guys this information, it's also on afsp.org, their website as well, that there's not one single cause to suicide, but a multitude of different factors that can impact it. But we often see either a job loss or relationship loss or something significant and attribute that to the loss. But there could be other different factors going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just never know.
I feel like how you got involved with AFSP, it shows how important an event like the Chicagoland Walk really is every single year. People wonder, why are people walking? What is that really doing? But, look at you now. And look what it, provided for you.
Yeah.
Just think, those
community.
walks do way more than you can see.
Yeah.
They do so much.
I just was so surprised when I went to the first one in 2014, where just how diverse it was.
Yeah.
I truly wasn't expecting it to be, because there's so much shame and stigma within mental health, but also especially within the South Asian community. And I just didn't have that kind of support that I needed. And AFSP and AFSP Illinois ended up being the support that I found that I didn't know that was out there. And it kind of became my support group, my support that could understand me, that I could look at somebody and not even talk, and just that we can sit there or be around each other and be in that presence of that shared experience or that shared loss, or just being around other people that are there to either support those that have struggled, support their friends, family members, anybody, and just how welcoming of an environment it was. And I kept emailing or resharing, just motivating me more and more to get involved and be connected, because it provided me that safe space and a place that I felt okay and comfortable, and not being asked questions of why did your mom do this, or what was going on, or how did you not know, and helping me find that way of how to grieve, how to be okay, but also not be okay, and be okay with that.
Yeah.
And so
give a purpose to your grief.
Yes, that's actually a really great way to say it.
Yeah.
I never said it like that.
Yeah.
Purpose to my grief. I really like that.
Yeah.
See, I'm also learning every time too. And that's what I like to share, point out too, that no matter how long you've been in this or you start volunteering within this, that you're still learning, but you're also still communicating. And it was also a great way for me to see other people who've gone through this grief and where they are, how they've navigated it, being able to ask questions and become friends with people of all different ages.
Yeah.
I have friends that are like 20, 30 years older than me.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like that at all.
Right.
Or even younger, but it's being able to talk openly and get advice or get support or call them and be like, I'm not okay. I need to talk or I need to vent or something.
They get it.
Yeah. And what I loved about the Illinois chapter when I was like first attending and very new is just how open everybody was and welcoming and answering my questions. Or one of the best ways I always recommend everybody to get started or any of that, if you feel comfortable, is tabling and just going to events. And that's what I did a lot of, and just being around and do as much as you want or as little as you want, but just the environment I was around and made me want to do more. But it also, like you said, with that, purpose, it made me also want to learn more.
Right.
And the other part of this was when I was 21, October 2008, I just turned, August 2008, I turned 21. October, it was midterms at DePaul. I think I had maybe 2 or some left. And I went to a cultural event. It's called Gerba, and it happens every year. There's a long story with explaining it. I could tell you guys another time. But I was in a really bad car accident, T-boned, it fractured my pelvis in 3 different spots. It literally going like this and back and stuff. And it just was a lot.
Wow.
And I didn't connect it or anything, but I couldn't walk for a while.
Right.
I had a walker at 21. I joke about that. I have to laugh at that, or else it's gonna be hard to remember. But I had to. My apartment was on the 3rd floor, no elevator.
Oh my God.
And so I had to finish. I finished 2 classes from home, and then I dropped 2 classes. And having to navigate all of that on my own, because obviously I'm over 18, so I have to in college. I can have my parents help with it, given permission, but I had to figure out everything, and I had to connect with the dean of students to drop my classes, and you could only do it once in your academic career with that.
Oh wow.
And so I dropped 2, so it wouldn't be on my I'll still remove it from my transcript.
Right.
So dealing with all of that, dealing with the insurance company, and so because it would be easier for me to just directly talk to everybody, especially my parents, it's speak English and everything, but also it would be hard for them to go into detail and specifics on that. So mind you, I was dealing with all of that. And then when I returned back to school, so we had 5 weeks left after midterms, and then DePaul has 6 weeks off for winter break. So I went back in January. So I was home for 11 or so weeks. Mm-hmm. So then I went back in January, and I resumed everything where I left off. And I wish somebody had told me to slow down and ease myself in, but nope. I went right back into resuming where I picked up, where I left off. And a little bit later, in sometime in January, I started to feel a little bit off. I started to feel like something was wrong, but I just couldn't tell. Mm-hmm. I didn't know what I was feeling was anxiety and panic attacks. Yeah. Because, we've all experienced anxiety and I didn't do well on a test or normal amounts of anxiety and stuff or panic, or I don't think I ever associated with that. And also mental health was never talked about in my family. Yeah. Or especially in our community as well. South Asian community, it's never really talked about. Yeah. Or also if you're fine, everything's okay. And I also was throwing up, but not purposely, but it was because my stomach in the pit of my stomach, it's just it just didn't feel good. And then like coughing, and I just like was like a whole cycle, but I knew something was wrong.
Right.
Like, I could tell this was like not my normal behavior. And like from the morning I would call my mom, and I don't like the other part I think I've learned over the years is I don't blame my parents for like anything either.
Of course.
More so of like taking that understanding from it of my parents knew what their parents taught them, and their parents and their parents, and they come
like
from
the generational
pattern, like cycle
Yeah.
and pattern, and knowing that like this is going to be really important. And like I learned this year like a lot later, but it's a big thing too, especially coming from like a culture where there is so much stigma and shame, or like what will other people say,
Yeah.
or what will other people think, your reputation, family's reputation,
Yeah.
and that's a big one too. And so my mom's like, don't tell your dad, you're fine, like he might make you leave school, because she was worried that he might like pull me from school
Yeah.
and bring me home if I was like this stressed or overwhelmed or something. And so I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna say anything. So I didn't say anything.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was as like anything negative, more so like
No.
worry or any of that.
Yeah.
And so I just knew something wasn't right. And so I did know that DePaul had a counseling center. So I did walk in. I don't know how I got to that decision on it, but it was on the third floor of our student center in Lincoln Park. And I like just second floor is like kind of like where all the like the food like areas were and stuff. And so I would do a few of the drop-in sessions, like which were 15 minutes. And also like I couldn't eat either because the anxiety was so bad that I couldn't eat.
Yeah.
And it just felt like everything was all over the place and I had no control or nothing. And so the moment I would wake up, get ready real fast, and then leave, and then I wouldn't want to come back till like the end of the day or at night or something. And I don't know how through all of this at that time that the only thing I actually did focus on was school, which I thought was, now being a therapist, I do know why I did that, because school was the only thing I could control.
Right.
And it was the only thing that like I felt like no one could take away from me.
Right.
So that actually did fine in school. So,
Yeah.
but I, there's times where like even in the drop-in sessions too, like they'd be like, they would say like, go get some food from downstairs, bring it back up here, and like we'll eat as you like talk and stuff. And so I did get like a little creative with a few things, or go eat with friends or stuff like that. But eventually the counseling department asked if I wanted to do an intake, and I did. And then they asked me if I wanted a South Asian therapist, because there actually was somebody there.
Wow.
And I said no. I said no because I was so afraid or worried because of the fear of being judged.
Yeah.
And speaking with somebody that was from the same community, like not from the South Asian community, like what are they going to
like
think
shame
of me?
you or
or
something.
like judgment or anything. And at that time, I didn't know what confidentiality was.
Yeah.
I didn't know like what therapy was or any of those kind of things. And so what I really am excited, like happy that they said this was, why don't you give it a try? And if you don't like it, we can switch you. And I'm so thankful that they did that.
Yeah.
And said it that way, because I ended up loving, like it's very cliche I say, but like I ended up really connecting with my therapist. I actually still see her today. So
I love that.
Wow, that's so awesome.
And wrapping up too, like I actually switched my major going into spring semester. So I think that was maybe around March or so. So March-ish, mid-March and March, somewhere in there. And I switched from pre-med to psychology.
Okay.
And I used to like make fun of my roommates and say like, oh, you're doing psych, you're doing the easy way out.
Yeah.
They had,
And then you joined them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're like, now I'm here.
And they had a lovely time. They never let me forget that.
Yeah.
But something really changed within it. It's the same kind of thing with, I noticed with AFSB and like AFSB Illinois, that interest in learning and applying it to myself so I can learn.
Yeah.
And I took, like, with all my classes and everything, I utilized it, like papers, anything, and tied it to like depression and anxiety, or if I was writing about it or anything of like kind of trying to understand what I was going through.
Right.
And I think that helped fuel that passion within it, but also helped with coping and understanding at the same time I was going through all of this and in therapy. And so it was really interesting. But as I said, yeah, I did change my major to psych. I also noticed my GPA improve. My GPA as bio major was not good.
Yeah.
But in psych, it improved significantly.
You found your passion.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was through the worst thing. So it's like bittersweet, but also made such a difference in that moment. But also of the biggest part too of like all of that too was putting I at the forefront of prioritizing myself, which was really hard to do
for you.
It was so new in a way because everything is about community, your family group needs in our South Asian community and family dynamics. Like everyone knows everything, like any of that. And so college was the first time where I'm like, oh, okay, I'm on my own.
I'm on my own, yeah.
But also then this, I'm like, oh, I'm even more on my own on this, or I don't want to tell anybody because I'm afraid of what's going to happen with it.
So did your family, did they take it well when you...
That was about to be my question. How was like the reaction from your family and the South Asian community?
Well, I kept it a secret for a while. And tying in this too, there was a Muslim prayer room right in front of like the corner where you go into the counseling department, and I would like every time I would go like either look at my phone and go in or like hide my face or do something so like no one, if there was any friends of mine in there or anybody in there, like they didn't know I was going there. Like I would hide it every single time. None of my friends knew for a bit. Maybe a couple people knew, but
did people even know that like your mom had passed?
No, actually maybe I should clear that up. Sorry. This was
was before, right?
Yeah, before. So 2009, and then this 2009. So I only had 20 sessions, so like I kept it very like we spaced it out, and it lasted till 2009, 2010. Okay. And so, I think that it was very hidden. Like I didn't tell a lot of people. Yeah. Only close friends knew for after a while, and I didn't post it online. I didn't post anything. I still continued with everything I was doing. But a couple of people knew and were there to support with it. Or like I would ask like, hey, can I come over and like nap at your place? Or I need to like go like eat, will you come with me? Or like other different things. So eventually I did tell like some of my close friends and best friends about it and stuff. And I did, I can't remember exactly when, but I did go on medication. Okay. I was on sertraline after a bit. I think that conversation, it was very helpful. Helps. I started with my therapist, and then I went to our doctor, and then I did eventually get on medication. And I think that helped a lot because throughout the summer, I didn't have like therapy because I wasn't in school. And I was able to go kind of function again and be able to do things and go get through stuff. So like, I definitely think that therapy in conjunction with medication at that time was helpful because I think I got on medication soon after starting therapy to kind of cope with everything. And at first, I don't know if I'm going to ask my therapist this question because she has such a good memory of that, of like, what was it? How open was I to medication or not? I think I have a feeling I wasn't as much, but I also was open to. Yeah. I also might have been open to it as well. But I don't think I told anybody for a while. I don't think my family knew for a very long time. I think my mom was the only person that kind of knew. Yeah. And then after, like, then I did at the end of my senior year, somewhere in that year, going into my senior year, I did interview at a grad school for a master's program, which I was so excited about. I didn't get in though, but it's okay. I was happy though that I'm like, oh wow, like I got this opportunity, or that I even had the chance to do that. Yeah. And prior to that, like I didn't even think about that, or would have even thought about grad school or like psychology grad school or any of that, or doing therapy. Yeah. And it took, and so I think with going in with with my mom's loss and everything, and just like after that, like I did get into like a master's program, actually 6 or so weeks before my mom passed away. Wow. And that like right at the beginning of the year in January, I started that year in 2011. Wow. And so like with that, like it's been from like since my mom passed to like even like all this time that I've been doing advocacy work, but I've also been working with my family indirectly or directly about how to talk about mental health support signs and stuff like that. And so they, a couple of years ago, like, I had like a very bad, like depressive, like, I would say like, it started to be like things that you can kind of pick up that were not going as well, or like I was having more crying, I was crying more, or just like more anxious. Started like behaviors and stuff. I knew that I'm like, okay, I'm really anxious, but I don't think in my mind I was noticing that.
Yeah.
And my family kind of like ended up stepping in. My brother called my friend to ask questions. I ironically happened to be there with her that time. So they started to notice things and they jumped right in. So like it took from all those years.
But they're there.
But that's awesome to know that they
and they make comments.
Reached out to your friends too.
And they make comments and stuff, but I'm like, with the caveat of like helping too. So it's like a mix of both. But yes, that support was there. But that's been years that I've
in the works for that.
But
you helped them get there.
Yes.
Which is so cool. Yeah.
Thank you.
How old were you when your mom passed away?
I was 23.
Wow.
I was 23 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. And after a month after that, my grandma passed away.
Oh no.
My advice to like other people going through anything would be like slow down.
Yeah.
But I was also like on a mission, mission I would say. Like I didn't want to graduate a semester later than my friends or at a different time. So
you stayed in grad school?
Oh no, undergrad, finishing up DePaul. Okay. Like I took 5 or some classes till like the next year to make up and make sure that I graduated in time with my friends, and just add that in 2010. I did not want to. I took summer school. I took whatever I could or anything. So I did like increase my work caseload. Oh my God. Yeah. Increase my school workload and everything. And I did do it on time and everything, but I don't know how with it, and maybe I would not recommend doing that again. If I probably could, it's okay not to have to graduate on time. It's completely fine. Yes. But it just was within it. And so 2009 to 10 was just like all recovery, getting back into things, adjusting back. I was still doing therapy. And then the day before my senior set of finals, I got a call saying that, and I was at the library. And they told me that my grandma had a congestive heart failure, and she was taken to the hospital and everything. And eventually she was placed on life support and everything. And my family couldn't let go. It was hard to say goodbye and everything on that. And she was on life support for a year, which was really hard. Yeah. And my grandpa went to see her every day and spend time with her there. And so we would drop him off, pick him up. It was a very like difficult like couple of years. Yeah. And so that I remember like we had to have a cab come drop my grandpa off at home the day that my mom passed. And then I was driving home. I left work early.
And those are her parents?
No, these are my dad's parents. Okay. And so it was just a lot. And then after 2000 so that was that. And then 2011, my mom passed, my grandma passed a month after that. Wow. And then we went to India to spread a month later. Right after that, we went to India to spread the ashes and everything and do all the religious and cultural stuff there. Then coming back, and then there were 2 more deaths in our family. My dad's cousin and his wife passed away, and then after that, my grandpa passed away. That's my grandpa. Like, it was just like a rough couple of years,
right?
And it just was, and it was a lot. And so, then I didn't get into my doctorate program for 3 years after undergrad.
Well, I think you needed those 2 years.
I think you needed.
Maybe, but like it just was like a lot within it. And I do say that school and psychology were my biggest, like the things that I could control, but also
like a constant.
But consistent is something that
like your rock almost.
Yeah, and I liked it.
An escape almost
escape too. And it also helped me like learn a lot more and interest in it, and it came a little bit easier and to understand. And I just realized my brain was working a lot differently. I didn't mind writing papers. I'd rather write papers than a test. But it just was a lot within it. And it was something that I feel like, my entire 20s, I felt like was just like from 21, I would say. It was like just trying to survive.
Yeah.
And
like kind of in fight or flight almost.
Yeah. And that changes you as a person.
And like you probably matured so much quicker than everyone else around you.
Do you think that like during those times, obviously you said you didn't really tell anyone or talk about it. Now that you are part of AFSP, do you wish that you did connect with people that were going through a similar situation, or just kind of knew?
It took me a while, but I would say the walk stuff was where I first started, 2014.
Yeah.
That would be my like first like official start with stuff. I guess also like I didn't know that what I was trying to look for or what I wanted to do was called advocacy, which I didn't know at the time, which I mean, yes, we know the word, what it is, but I didn't know that that's what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to do something, but I didn't know in what form it would look like. And I think that by volunteering with AFSP and AFSP Illinois, it gave me that confidence and that courage to be able to speak about those things. And then eventually I did share like my story of like what I went through and share that, because I didn't have that support. And everyone did their best to like support me and everything, but also it was never talked about. And if anybody was going through it, like I didn't know, or none of my friends, like none of us really ever talked about that.
Like
stuff.
I was gonna ask that. Did anyone else kind of near you like
eventually when I did tell some friends, they did tell me about stuff. But it was like all my friends were very studious. They were like all so smart, like doing so great in school, like very smart. When I was like intimidated when I came to that, because I'm like, I'm not that smart compared to that. Of like studying takes me 10 times longer than my other friends that get it just like this. And so eventually I did. The reason why I wanted to share was that I didn't want someone to go through what I went through. And as social as I was such an extrovert. Yeah. Like I knew everybody. I was always like out and socializing and meeting people and connecting. It was a lot. I loved it. And so, but you would have never known I was going through that. You would have never even known. And even like on Facebook and Instagram and stuff, like I would have never posted about that stuff. Never. And I didn't even create my mental health account on Instagram until like, I would say 2017 or 2018. And so it took even time to connect to that. But I was doing it on my personal one. And it took a while, but I used that as an opportunity to share that even though, you know, someone like me is social, outgoing, does all these different things, that I was struggling silently for so long. And well, not for so long, but like for a little bit. And I noticed that something was wrong. I just didn't know what it was. And that therapy also helped me learn like the vocabulary and the language around like what I was going through and identifying it. But also utilizing what I was learning in my classes as well as another form of like exposure there. I guess if you're calling it clinical.
Right,
It's
like
learning.
you're educating everybody about what you're learning about.
Yeah, and that was like a little bit years later on that. But I started with my mom's stuff, and then I incorporated my stuff in. And I was so nervous, and I'm like, even for this, I'm like, I was nervous earlier. But like,
it's hard to be vulnerable sometimes.
But I've done so, and that's the thing too. I'm like, I put in so much stuff. Like, why am I so nervous? Yeah. But also of like, there's things that I still question sometimes, like, oh, should I like post that or not? Or like, I don't know if I should do this or say that or anything, or overthink it the next day. And then, but I'm like, I've done way more things that people would be like, wait, how did you do that? Without like advocating and sharing and doing all these amazing opportunities I've had, that I'm like, why am I still being nervous? But it's also normal within it. And I wouldn't change it the way that I like went about it. I think that was like the perfect pace for me to go through it. And I needed time to, I think, until I was ready to talk about it.
Definitely.
And until I was like okay with doing that. But the biggest thing I do share with anybody that's starting off or sharing or anything is I speak from my perspective.
Yes.
And I share my mom's story from also my perspective as well, but overarching in general, just like with women as well, and like young girls, anybody just struggling with mental health, even in marginalized communities, but just overall of like, you never know what somebody's going through.
Right.
And but it's led to some amazing opportunities.
Yeah.
I had women reach out to me from like the UK and India asking about this ID program where my doctorate in clinical psychology and what it was like to apply, or can I help them with their essays? They're thinking about that and wanting to come to school here, but eventually go back to India to practice or something. I'm like, wait, this is so amazing.
Yeah.
And all that was from like sharing on Instagram and Facebook.
Wow.
That's so amazing.
I feel like we're so fortunate to be like going through what we've been through with social media nowadays, because with accounts like AFSP, like it's so educational. Like all these big terms you've been using since you've came here today, like we already knew about all of them because of the Instagram account.
Right.
Yes.
So it's like crazy how
It's
much
a lot
social
easier
media
to
has really
access.
helped. Yeah, and really
And
helped us get
normalize.
there quicker to
Yeah.
be able to share our story, I feel.
Yeah. I think about you like not talking about it for so long. The first year that after Shay passed away, I feel like we did talk about it, but almost it was like painful for me to talk about, because I was like in my head sometimes feeling like, oh, is she, because Shay was always the type to feel like embarrassed about everything.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, like, is she embarrassed that we're talking about her or whatever? But she was also a psychology major, and she got into grad
And
school
very
for
passionate
psychology.
about speaking out about
Yeah.
it. So
She would be
now
so
I'm
proud
like,
of you guys.
this is like her, in a weird way, like she wanted to help, and like she is
Her
by giving us
contribution.
her story.
right.
So
Right.
And it's also keeping her memory alive
Yeah.
too.
It's like
and
we've taken her mission of wanting to become a psychologist and help people mentally, and now we kind of took over the rest of her mission.
Yeah.
For her.
Yeah.
When she's up there helping us.
yeah,
Right.
and I think that's a great way too, because I see that parallel between like both of our starts of where we started and how we started too. And also I tell people, I'm like, it could also be like from anybody, of like it can also be somebody that is struggling too, and you being an advocate too, or somebody that has like us, like that have lost somebody to suicide, or somebody that having a difficult time. And all these voices are important. And
Right.
I am so thankful for this too, because one, I would overthink even like doing what a podcast is or any of that. So I love that there's people like you out here that do this, because it's easier for people like me who are either overthinkers or nervous or don't even know where to start with any of this stuff, that to be able to come on and share and be like this collaborative process. So I think that even more so now that this is even more important, especially within like age of like within like social media
The
now.
age group.
Yeah, and how important it is and how chronically online we all are.
Right.
And I am chronically online.
Yeah.
And so it's important too, because there's so much stuff out there, and there's also like there's also some stuff that's not good either.
Yeah.
And that's important to be mindful of, and
Right.
knowing like where you can go to ask for
boundaries.
help or how you can ask for help.
Right.
I even have had teenagers I've worked with in sessions where they've asked about their friends, and they're struggling, and this is something that often comes up too, where you're struggling but your friend is also struggling, or somebody you know, and it's like, what do you do, what do you not do, or any of those things, and helping them guide through that, or how do you manage but also want support, but there's this whole like part of that.
Yeah.
And I think that's that part too, of like, I see someone struggling and I want to help, but I also don't want them to be mad at me.
Yeah.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit more about AFSP. They have a saying that postvention is prevention. What exactly does that mean?
So with postvention, is prevention. It means that we actively provide support for after suicide loss to prevent future suicide loss.
Okay. Yeah, that's really great.
Yeah,
'Cause
I
like
love
you
it.
said, that's
Yeah.
all of our mission here.
And it's so important to have that because it's going right back into advocacy and education and increasing awareness. And we'll definitely get into this later, but knowing the risk factors, the warning signs, what kind of plans are in place, either at school, at work, or anywhere around that needs support within that, and within friends too. Of like, how if somebody has been struggling, what do you do?
Yeah.
This is just like another side
Yeah.
topic on that of knowing these things can really be like, one, you're being proactive,
Yeah.
but also you're knowing like where you can go, like what kind of resources are available, where to go, even like just going to the your nearest emergency room, or calling 988,
Yeah.
or texting the crisis text line. I think it's 741 and typing in home. I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Within those, and these are all there. And so I always tell people, I'm like, these are supports, but also I offer to be with either friends or anybody that's struggling, sitting with them or going with them to an appointment. I've done that with friends where I've waited outside in my car or in the lobby while they've been at a therapy appointment or a psychiatry appointment, and just giving them that support within their needs. Postvention and is prevention. We also want to be mindful and incorporate in cultural diversity as well, and making sure that there are culturally relevant like supports available. And like as I mentioned earlier too, when I was offered the chance to work with a South Asian therapist, I didn't even think about it until actually like right now as I'm talking about this, connecting it in that way of tying in that this is related to that, of providing those resources that if they're available. So having those resources available and community supports is also important, because sometimes too, some people may not want somebody from their community as a therapist, and sometimes they do, and it might be easier with terminology or saying things and you don't have to explain every little detail, or sometimes you might not want that at all, and that's okay. But those options, or that being able to provide, there you go, and needing those things is so important, because in tying it back to the walk as well, seeing that diversity, seeing that inclusion and representation was so important to me, because it brought me back again. It made me want to get involved, but also it was a place where I felt seen and also heard, but also valued and respected. And all those things are so important, especially with someone that is struggling. But also, I didn't have people like telling me like, okay, you need to do this or that, or like you're fine within that. But hearing somebody, especially listening and having appropriate supports, but also even just for us in general, like supporting other people, or even for ourselves going through it. And I can share these with you guys later too, but like knowing like how to talk to somebody, knowing what to say, what not to say is a big one too. You want to also avoid assuming, right? What they're going through, or like, oh, you'll be fine, or dismissing somebody. And so those are also important things to learn, and how to especially talk about mental health and suicide. And being able to say the word suicide without your voice feeling uncomfortable,
feeling like it's not okay to say that word.
And my voice would crack, or I get nervous or low or in the beginning, and I had to make sure that I would be comfortable with it, especially being a therapist. It's a big part of my career, so that's something too I utilize to go back into therapy, that how will I be a competent therapist if I lost my mom to suicide, and what if it comes up in a session with somebody? What if like I encounter it? What will I do? And that was one of the big reasons why I did go back to therapy while I was in grad school, to work through those things. Because there was no way that I could avoid it.
And that's like, you don't want to get triggered in a session and then you're like, oh my God.
That would be very, yes.
Yeah.
I also feel like going back to this whole like post-vention is prevention thing. I've recently read like community can save somebody's life. Like that community and connection piece is probably the best thing any suicide loss survivor could do. And just being with people who get you and understand you and can do those things without dismissing you and actually just listen to you is so huge.
And having a place to tell your
Right.
story, and not even tell, just being there.
Right.
Is a
And
big part.
I think like with this whole thing too, like postvention is really important, because if there wasn't postvention, like how would we even be here right now? But like, yeah, so I think postvention is just super important, because without it, like what would our purposes be right now? Like there's so much that advocacy that has come from postvention. So it's just so important to have and to talk about.
It is so, so true. And it reminds me of just like, actually, this happened at this year's walk. And I, by the end of the walk, I was so hungry. I was so, so hungry. And I'm like at the food trucks, and also like the line was so long.
Yeah.
I was getting a little hangry, and I just was like moving into everything. And that's also important. We have to take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
And that was a great example of like making sure for next year I'm prepared. So I'm not like starving and running around. But I was in line and just like randomly talking to somebody next to me. And we were just talking about like, I was just introducing myself. I like to talk to as many people as I can.
Yeah.
Because sometimes there are people there by themselves.
Yeah.
And then there could be somebody there with a lot of people, or somebody that might just be coming and not saying like, not disclosing why, like what their relation to the cause is, and they don't have to,
Right.
But I met this person and I did get their information, but it was, we were just randomly talking like, oh, like what, just questions like talking about the walk and asking them like, oh, is this their first walk? Or I think they had mentioned, one of us had mentioned it. And I like had thanked them for coming and how important it was too. And then I shared like my first walk experience in 2014, and we talked about that for a little bit. And this person came by themselves, and they weren't sure if they could make it or not, or if they wanted to come or anything. And it was a great place to, like, for us to connect and share, but also too that it took a lot of courage for them to come and just be there and giving them that space. But I also wanted to welcome them and also know that like this is like exactly for that reason, and how even I got involved, how you guys got involved and everything. And I shared a little bit more about like there's other walks like throughout the state, and also where the fundraising goes, and also of like what we are able to do in Illinois because of the fundraising, and especially just building on that connection of like that just connecting with each other. And I did get their contact info, and I will be like staying in touch with them. But it's also that part of, especially for people like them, and having this walk, like you said, that with postvention is prevention, is that this person now knows that this exists, and this community is out there, especially community. And that's what I really love about the walk and AFSP and AFSP Illinois, is that community and being able to make so many connections, friends. I build relationships off of people that are close friends of mine now from just this, from volunteering, meeting at events, meeting at walks, and being there for support, or providing that here's resources, here you can message. And if you don't want to, that's okay too, but we're here. Or I'm here. But I also I do those things because I know I'm able to respond back, or I can do that and I have the bandwidth for that. If you can't, that's okay too, right? But I do it because I'm able to, like, I've been able to do it for years now, and I'm able to manage those connections, but I also keep boundaries within that.
So we've talked a lot about the Out of Darkness Walk. I do want to touch on Survivor Day, since that is happening this month in November. And I know we all know what that is, but a lot of people watching might not even know it exists.
Yes.
Because fun fact, I didn't know it exists until we were going to interview you. And I absolutely love it. So if you want to share a little bit about Survivor Day.
Yeah. So International Survivors of Suicide Loss Day will be November 22nd this year, and the virtual Illinois Survivors Day will be held on November 23rd.
Okay.
And on the 22nd, there are a few different locations throughout the state that will be hosting a Survivors Day event. And on Wednesday, November 19th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, there's the International Survivors of Suicide Loss Day for Central Division for the LGBTQ plus communities and allies, and that is a virtual event. And that will be hosted by AFSP Central Division, so including Arkansas, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Greater Kansas, Kentucky, South Dakota, North Dakota, well, everybody in the Central Division.
Yeah.
And there's from Belleville, Illinois to Chicago to Lisle to Crystal Lake. There's Downers Grove, Joliet, Roxana, Illinois, Schaumburg, Galesburg. So it's all throughout the state. And what I do like is having also the virtual event for those that might not be able to attend an in-person day event, but also for those that might not feel comfortable being able to attend in person either, and at whatever stage they are in their grief. But what I also love about and it's having a Survivors Day is so important for especially those that have for us that have lost somebody to suicide, and being able to be with that community, those that understand, that have gone through this and this experience, which is a tough one to go through, and seeing those in the different stages of grief and where they are, and also finding that hope and inspiration to see that, okay, maybe I can get there one day, or I can share this, or I can be around that. But the biggest part, as you talked about earlier, that community is so important because
I feel like it brings hope to people.
It does.
and like every year, like, oh my God, like I've always heard everyone every year, because it's just like call me, or like I want to connect with you, or just knowing that like I can't even, like, it makes me also think about like where I was in the beginning.
Right, it's almost like you're hugging old you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Who was grieving and
being
hurting
there
and confused.
and also showing them that this outcome is also there too, that it took time, but also it's okay too.
Right.
And like you said, it's people at various different stages. I remember one where I went to in Barrington, and I think it was one of my first few in person. No, it was I think a few years later. But I went to help out and everything, and I was moderating a breakout group as well, and just hearing people talk about their stories, even though I was on the board, it still impacts me. And I met somebody who was actually sitting right next to me in my breakout group, and I still keep in touch with her, and I was invited to her daughter's tree ceremony at the school.
Aww.
And that they had placed for her, and
So sweet.
lighting of I can't remember the name, but lighting the lantern, and then letting them go into the air. And it just was really nice to be invited to that. And
You've really become
such a special moment.
You're part of people's grief journeys.
Yeah, and to be
really
asked
special.
to come, and you build those connections too. And
I kind of want to go.
you should,
Let's go.
I recommend anybody to go.
Yeah.
And also too, know that if it becomes a lot too, you can step away,
Right.
and it's okay. If you need to take a break, or if you even step in for a little bit, give yourself what you can and do and not, but also know that we're here to support, in whatever way, in that being able to support you within that, that's okay. And they will make sure that, you are like, if you need to step away, it's okay too. And no one will judge on that. We're there to support and have this in there for everyone.
I love that this takes place in November. I feel like that's such a great time of the year for a day like this. But with this time of year, with the holidays and like, you know, we have less daylight and like it just gets more sad and stressful and lonely for people. And I think it's important we touch on warning signs. So can you tell us about what warning signs might look like and how to help people when you are seeing these things?
Yes. So with warning signs, I brought our Toxic Lives booklet, which is an introduction to suicide prevention. And I love sharing this because it's a great way, for a great and easy and direct way to talk about suicide, but also understand what to look out for, from talk, mood, and behavior. And it gives really great examples that are direct and we might not even think about, but maybe know, but that are also associated with this. And so this is just like a little snippet of what the Toxic Slides presentation looks like. And going into this, it goes into just I'll show this in this, but as we're going through this, it is a great way for just breaking it down into smaller sections for us to understand of how there's health factors, environmental, and also historical factors that can impact all of these things. And so when we think of like mental health, health factors, you can think of like also mental health, like conditions too, where like depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, there's a lot of different things within this too. And so those are also a part of that too, we want to look into. And then serious or chronic health issues and pain, those are also big factors, and traumatic brain injury. With environmental factors, we're also looking for, do they have access to lethal means? Are they stored away safely? Is there like a gun safe or a lock or something? Or do they have to be removed? Like going into understanding those things, but also of prolonged stressors and even going into like stressful life events and how these impact somebody and knowing what's happening within that. And those are like signs as well that you can kind of pick up and go into and ask questions or ask, are you okay? Let me do this. Okay. So it's similar to like the behaviors that we talked about too. Just noticing somebody's, if going into mood, their depression, their anxiety, rage, irritability, what are they feeling to you, noticing those things too. And those are really, really important. Like to behaviors, and as they're talking, this ties into with their mood, and all of these are connected in going into like with their depression, the anxiety. Are they feeling any rage, aggression? Where all of this ties in with talk, behavior, and mood. And so these are, especially with this, like easy, like straight to the point, direct, that you can like reference and even take a picture on your phone and have. That's I really recommend going through like the Talk Safe Lives presentation, even having this. So those are important ones to understand.
Yeah. So all these things you've shared today, obviously we can probably find all of this on the website for AFSP. How can people get more about with like the survivor resources, educational programs, and volunteering? Like where can they find all these things?
Yeah, so you can definitely find all these resources on afsp.org, and there's great sections in there of like how to talk to somebody, how to reach out. There's also, for me, I'm a visual person, so I love that there's videos on there of people talking about their stories, sharing experiences. There's how to get connected. There's so many wonderful resources there, and gives you examples. So that way you don't have to stress about what do you have to say or how do you say these things. And it guides you through that process. And so being like a visual learner, I appreciate those examples. So that helps me directly ask somebody and know what to say and not to say. And one of the biggest things too is like you want to make sure you talk to them in private. You don't want to assume. You want to avoid giving like advice on certain things too, but also don't convince them like with that like okay that you should stay, you shouldn't do this or any of that. They're at the state where they are struggling and they're having a hard time. Whatever you're saying, it's not going to be sticking with them. But also you want to be there and listen to them.
Yeah.
And be non-judgmental. And also you want to also assume that you may be the last person to reach out, or not reach out, but assume that you may be the only one reaching out or saying anything or asking them.
Yeah.
And that, okay, maybe if I didn't get it, somebody else will get it. Assume that you might be the only one and reach in. I personally rather would have somebody be mad at me or upset with me than not say anything or do anything. But I appreciate like the questions and how to ask them and the support that is given on afsp.org's website with the under resources, and gives you great examples. And especially with this, I have from the Talk Away the Dark campaign. It is a great. I really recommend checking that out, and it gives you great examples of like in depth of how to ask a question. Talk Away the Dark, and within how to approach them. The video around this was really great, and it was a visual representation of what suicide can look like when someone is struggling, and you may not always see it or you may not always know, but what it's like to have those conversations, but also having direct conversations. And for somebody that might be nervous and might not know how to say it, AFSP does provide really great examples of how to have these conversations. And I highly recommend checking out Talk Away the Dark as well. And there's great examples. And I will send you all the links to this so everybody can find them easily. And with this too, one of the main things I want to like stress it too is please take it seriously. We often, and I mentioned earlier, too, like we might like, oh, what if they're joking? Or we kind of pass it off as that. And sometimes like we use humor as a coping mechanism, and so, or dark humor, but you want to always want to take it seriously, because leading to that part of like, oh, maybe someone else might catch it or anything, assume that you are
the only one.
Don't wait for someone else to reach out. Like, you want it to be you. And so with this too, there's like great examples too. And it talks about in the back where there's this on like how to take action. So this is great examples for if you're struggling in that moment, what to do, right? So you can going with them to their doctor or walk-in clinic, emergency department. Yeah. And also the other part too, ways to help is creating time and distance between them and them engaging in anything that they might have. So like it creates that distance, so it allows them to creating time and distance between when you're supporting somebody, especially within that moment that they're struggling, and either being with them or going with them to appointments or emergency room or anything, so that it will help one decrease stressors that they're going through in the moment, but providing that support. And also I can send you guys this information as well, that creating that time and distance often will deter them from like their plan, and oftentimes like that backup plan, like this plan has been made, so it's creating that space for them to not engage in another plan, or if they don't have any. Sorry, that's not the right way to word it. So you also want to create time and distance, and that helps give support, but also creates distance from the plan that they've had, and getting them access to that support and anything, because oftentimes they focus on the plan that they've created, that they're not thinking about another plan. And so making sure that that's really important as well. And there's so much, I feel like, information I could share, but especially to 988, we want to make sure that is available, that is there, and you can call. And then also the crisis text hotline is another great one. But the biggest one too is calling 911 and going to your nearest emergency room, and also to also when you scroll at the very bottom on afsp.org, on the very bottom, you'll find ways to get involved. And there's a volunteer sign up link in there in the different areas. And so you can find your local chapter. So if you're in Illinois, you can find that as well. And other different ways too, of like sharing your story, talking points, but also so at the very bottom at afsp.org, there's a bunch of different links in there. There are links to like how to talk about suicide, what to say, what not to say, what to do when someone is at risk, how to become a volunteer, find your local chapter, how to sign up, with sharing your story, and especially we Talk Away the Dark is in there, resources for diverse communities, also with a whole list of additional resources that are great for marginalized communities, for different areas that are in there, for veterans. There's also support for the LGBTQ plus community that's really important. And like, there's Talk Safe Lives presentation too, and other different programs that we have in there. And within that too, there's a specific one I'm thinking of, but I will make sure I send it to you guys. And you can. My favorite one is the like short stories that are shared. People that are sharing their personal stories, things that they've gone through, even volunteers of like what it's like to advice to young people, those of like of sharing their stories of international survivors of suicide loss day, what got them involved. And it's so nice to see examples of that and seeing people from different communities talk about it, and adding to like when you first talked about it to just the importance of community. Yes. And I at the walk every year too, I think that's what brings a lot of people back every single year. Mm-hmm. And going through the different community walks and campus walks and everything, and just the support that it does to do there. And we couldn't do this without everyone that comes to support.
Yeah.
We couldn't really do it without it.
We really are one big community. That.
And as you say too, I thank you guys so much for doing this and creating that voice for everybody out there and sharing it, and sharing Shay's story as well too. I won't forget that. And it's just nice to see that and see how it's evolved and continues to evolve with social media now, and having these supports, because like you said, you didn't know about Survivor Day until you came, and now I'm going to go, or I want to go. And I think it's just very empowering to be there and know that you're not alone in this, that there are people there, and you can give as much as, or take as little, or just come. And we are so lucky to have everybody that comes, and me, and truly you guys too. And I remember as I saw you guys walking by that day, I was like, wait, stop. Like, come here. I want to talk to your side about that. Cause like, it just was like, it stood out. Yeah. And it just, I was like, I want to know the story behind this. And look at who we are now. And so it's so nice to see it. And I hope that you guys get very big. Don't forget us.
Wow. We won't. Don't forget us. It's so funny.
We will not forget you. Oh, yes. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of this valuable information, and most importantly, your story. Right. Because it's hard to be vulnerable, but obviously you've been doing this for years, so you've learned, a lot. But
look at us post Ventioning.
Yeah, together. Ventioning.
Wait, let's tie that in.
Wait, should we make that the title?
Yeah.
Wait, that is actually a great idea.
Yes, we will.
That is a great idea. Look at that.
Well, thank you for watching Stay
and Slay
with Mel
and Chrissy
and Dimple.
Yay! Thank you. Bye. Stay. Bye.